What if I told you this week's crowdfunding had two potential Game of the Year candidates for 2023, 2024, whatever you want to say. Two potential Game of the Year candidates. Two games that are potentially that freaking good. And I'm going to break it down for you for free. Liege style. Crowdfunding. What's new this week? What do you need to know about it? What are my thoughts on it? Everything you need to know. One source, one spot. Let's go, baby. Roll Liege. Yeah, we're starting with the biggest one. Biggest one in my opinion. Guards of Atlantis II, tabletop MOBA. Wolf Designs. I'm absolutely blown away by this game. Absolutely blown away by this game. I can't tell you how good of a tabletop skirmish style, multiplayer online battle arena style game in the League of Legends-esque way that this is. At the same time, this is not also for you, right? I have no qualms about saying that. You know, Aspire, Drink of Champions, sparkling juice here is telling me that you need ideally 4 people on a repeated gameplay situation to be able to play this. And I plays anywhere from 2 to 10. Would I play it with 10? No. Would I play it with 2? Yes. Do I want to play it at an odd player count? Not as much. Even player counts, which is a little bit divisive right there. But this is the preeminent, stand above everything else, battle lane style skirmish game out there. I have no qualms about telling you that. That's my opinion. I'm biased. I have a copy, not sent to me, backed it on the last crowdfunding campaign. It's that good. However, there's a lot going on in terms of if you're looking for something very simple, this is also not going to be it. A lot of characters, and the expense is a lot more this time around. You know, if I didn't love this game as much as I did, you know, you can see me up here in the upper right hand corner here. I'm backing and I'm getting all of the new stuff. Do I need it? No. Do I want it? Yes. Am I spending too much money on a game I'm not going to get played enough? Yes. But this is also one of those few that has not shown up at retail elsewhere. So if you want it, you're going to have to potentially get it on this crowdfunding campaign or risk picking up in the secondary market when the scalpers jack it up for 2 to 3 times the cost like they did this time around. You have your deck of cards, you upgrade your abilities, you knock out your enemy's minions, you knock out all the minions, you move forward in the lane. If the lane gets all the way to your opponent's throne, you win. If you knock out your opponent's champions enough times, you win. If you can't get either of those achieved, you go to a sudden death round, and whoever wins that round wins the game. It's relatively self-contained. You're only playing 1 card per turn 4 times each round. And the biggest issue I have with this is that they've released some new maps here, because I hate the large foldable mats, because inevitably they get tears around the corners and it looks really crappy. And so I'm actually team neoprene when it comes to these larger ones if you're going to use them repeatedly, like Aeon Trespass Odyssey, which I'm running into. 2 lanes, 1 lane, smaller player count, larger player count. And they've released 2 that are going to be a little bit better at the mixed. This one, better at the 6 to 10. One of the other new maps that they're releasing is better at 4 to 6. Take that for what you will. There's a bunch of hero packs, though. I got all the hero packs. The all-in last time was like 110 or 150 bucks. I don't know, something in between there. But for comparative purposes, it's a lot more right now. Ooh, there's me. But this is a great game. It's just whether or not all of those parameters are going to work for you. Again, here's the thing I'm getting. The 2 new hero packs in the first printing update. If you want all 5, though, this is an immense cost to go in right now. $250 in almost a year and a half. And I say that, you know, lovingly, but that's too much for probably most people for this type of game. No qualms about saying that. It's that good, though. Do you need everything? No. Do I want one of these neoprene mats? Yeah, I do. The nice thing, though, is the designer says that flat out, you don't need them. They're not going to be that different. You can play the other 2 plenty of times. I would not mind a 1 lane battler. And this is the same board. It's just 1 lane versus 2. So you get 2 different versions of it, essentially, if you go back and forth here. Yeah, actually, this is the base one. I don't know what I'm talking about. This is the base one right here. It has the neoprene mat, so I might throw that in the Pledge Manager. And then this is the new one here, the new double-sided single and double lane one here. And this is the one that they say is totally superfluous, but I really like the look, and I'm going to have a hard time not backing this, because this is going to be really a hard pass or, you know, keep for me on the Pledge Manager. So I won't do more than the actual pledge level, though. Never buy more than the pledge level. Check out my review, though. Check out other people's reviews. Like, I'm biased, so check out what other people say, because I'm an idiot and I talk about board games, but other people's opinions are better than mine sometimes. Just kidding. No, they're not. Even though it feels like it sometimes. Anyway, self-deprecation over. This is the first week in a long time that we have led with 2 Game Found games, or even 1 Game Found game lately. Next up, we're talking about the latest Endeavor version. Not Age of Sail, but Deep Sea. You're going deep diving under the water with this one. And if you were as surprised as I was last week when I looked at the Board Game Geek rankings, this is in the top 150 of games all time, the original version. And if you tell me that this is a 2.0 version of things, or even a 1.5 version of things, wow, that's actually pretty impressive. So that is really a good thing. A combination of Burnt Island and Grand Gamers Guild, my local. And so 1 to 4 players, 80 minutes. Okay, I'm intrigued. I actually have the prototype copy sitting over in my kitchen. So I will have a video out during this campaign if you want to know more. So I'm going to deep dive the Deep Sea to give you my full opinions on whether or not this game is right for me, or frankly speaking, whether or not better it's right for you. So I kind of like the way this page is set up. I kind of don't like it, like all Game Found pages, right? They go through a little bit of what's here, and I really like the way it's set up here about what's the same. If you're familiar with the base game, they tell you, okay, this is the same sort of stuff. If you like this, we have this still. What's different is that they're talking about, okay, here are some differences though that you need to know right away. And I love it when campaigns put this at the top. Competitive, cooperative, solo, specialist, scenario driven, modular board. Okay, great keywords, boom, boom, boom. Components, you know I don't care about those. Quotes, again, whatever. Upgrades, deluxifications, whatever. You get down to the pledge levels, again, I think this should be lower. I want to know the gameplay. But the interesting thing here is $69 for this. Upgrade pack is going to cost you $25, but then the retail is only $10 less. So why would you get the retail right now? No sense whatsoever unless you're outside of like North America. And the upgrade pack, the other thing I don't like about the upgrade pack that I'm going to point out here just as a quick second, I don't like the fact that you threw a 5th player expansion in there as an added cost. I wish I could pay $50 for no added expansion as well, but it gives you dual layer player mats, which is fine. Again, a little bit of storage if the storage actually is good. Deluxe storages have not great in my last year of getting games. They have been very hit or miss. Sometimes they're fantastic. Sometimes they're just making a better cardboard insert that's good for shipping the game, but it's piss poor for actual storing it, especially the way I want to store it in the first place, you know, upright or flat. Then they go down here and they finally get to the gameplay, which is kind of cool. 4 reputation markers that you're going to be doing. You have the specialists that I mentioned. You're going to be using your little disc, placing them on specialists as you're recruiting the specialists via your reputation, which are the attributes that I showed you up above. You either play until you run out of spaces or play until you run out of discs. Then you travel around this map that's going to be available to you exploring areas, but you have the potential to explore different areas when you drop your sonar. Sonar is going to be something that happens and you get the rewards based on what you find. You dive down, you get the tokens, you get research, other bonus actions and benefits available to you. A few other things, journaling, conserving, and that you can take a look at a little bit more in the rules. The other big thing here, though, is it's scenario driven. So each of the scenarios are going to give you an asymmetric playthrough that are going to provide differences rather than just the specialists themselves. And so that's more of the additional modularity that's going to go along with that. And so I really like this conceptually. I'll be frank with you, I haven't played the prototype yet, so I can't give you my actual thoughts on do the mechanisms works, what works well, what doesn't work well, what am I concerned about that, but that's going to be in the video. Rulebook's there, scenario spotlight, so they run you through a little bit of the differences there between all of them, the whole bunch of videos that you can check out as well. Shipping is whatever, and you know, it's really the price point. So again, this is top notch. I mean, it's just whether or not this game, just like Guards of Atlantis, is for you. I don't have any doubt of the pedigree of this, but does it fit you? That is the key issue with all of these games, period. Next up, I didn't think I'd be talking about this week, but this is the other like biggest funder this week right now, is like Ninja Sloths, right? If it looks familiar, if it looks like it's something that you've kind of seen before, well, you have. It's in line of like Unstable Unicorns. And so that's the vibe that they're going for, Casting Shadows, Unstable Unicorns-esque. And they're going with it. Now, again, I hate these campaign pages because they give you all the pledge levels, they give you all of the extra add-ons, they give you all of the superfluous stuff. There's so many Kickstarter exclusive badges on this page, you can't tell what you're going to be able to get later and what you can't. And most of it probably can't, is kind of the way they're driving it right now. But it's basically set collection. You've got a row of 3 slots at the top, 3 weapons that you can slot below, and it's just draw a card, play a card. And then you can also take that up into your opponents. There's these guard cards in the middle that are guarding things, and you just have to have a total of gems in the upper left-hand corner of your cards here to be more than the total cost of the guard in the middle, and then you get the gems and you can win if you defeat enough guards.
Evil Guards, that is. There's a bunch of Kickstarter exclusives here, but this is in the lines of like your Flamecrafts and your Unstable Unicorns, as you'll see in a second here. You know, fuzzy gem pouch, upgraded playmats, customizations, flushies, stuffies, whatever you want to call them. You know, there's a combination of stuffy and plushy and stuffy and plushy, right? Plush, stuffy, I don't know, whatever you want to say. But there's all this stuff. I mean, this is almost the exact same style format of those other two games that I've mentioned that are going to come into crowdfunding. And clearly, you know, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, and it works because you got $45,000 and outfunding everything else on crowdfunding almost right now. And then finally down here, you start to see what the actual mechanisms are. So again, I just described the whole game for you. There's a couple expansions that give extra to it, but that don't really go into a whole lot of detail of what they're going to be adding. And they run through some stretch goals that are all locked still at the time of here, and they're going $25,000 apart. So that's a lot. Just take it for what you will. But yeah, that's it as a nutshell. It looks like a nice light style game, but it's one that definitely screams try for me before buy. I mean, it'd be one of those that I think my kids would like, but how much long-lasting Munchkin-esque style is it going to have? That'd be my worry. But I will give them a positive shout out here. Going up to ages 120, not discriminating against the 100+ crowd. I love seeing that. So there you go. Next up, Papillon Gardens. I actually have a copy of this review out maybe in the next couple days. Roll and write gardening game. It's actually a really solid game. I'm really surprised it's not funded. It just kind of flew under the radar. And so it's a stamp roll and write, which that's the biggest criticism I have of this. Stamps could easily be anything else. But you have this nice grid that you're going to be filling out, a 5x5 grid that's either going to be filled with fields, butterflies, and or shapes, objects, and creatures. And so you've got potentially like 3 or 4 different things that could go on in every single square that you're filling in. And the nice thing is you have simultaneous action selection of 3 of these cards that are each paired with a die each and every time you take a round, and you play over 10 rounds. And the die is going to have specific components on it that are going to affect the actual field areas, where you can either make it into a grass field or leave it as a regular one, put down caterpillar markings on the, I know that sounds funny, but on the caterpillar track, which gets additional bonuses, comboing things as you go along, or it can turn things even into brambles. And then the card itself, actually, you take 2 actions. There is the symbol in the outer edge here. For this one, this is a wall, or you have the spade and the shovel here, which is a digging action, which allows you to fill in some spots. But then you also have the inner shape, which is the flower in the middle, potentially, or something else, which is potentially what you're stamping down here on the actual grid. And then you try and color coordinate and set collect on the board in different areas. And so it's kind of just a nice little thing. But I guess the issue I have with it, yeah, I mean, the stamps are totally superfluous, and you're paying for ink pads right here when colored pencils would have been just fine. And so they're going for the gimmick. With these sort of things, I never know quite how well the gimmick is going to work, right? We saw from like R2I games a couple months ago last year that they did like the little globe thing, right, where you draw on the globe. I mean, it was a globe gimmick instead of a flat piece of paper, so it wasn't anything, but people like it. And so sometimes these are hard to predict. You get wooden stamps as well, so I mean, yeah, you're going to pay a little more. It's probably a nice product. But is it something you're going to want to get on crowdfunding from that aspect? And they run you through all the stuff here, and you have creature critters that are at the top, and here's the caterpillar track as well. I mean, it's straightforward. It's probably, comparison-wise, weight-wise, higher than a Welcome to Moon, or Cartographers, or that ilk, but it's not quite as heavy, obviously, as something like Motor City or Three Sisters. It sort of falls right in the middle, and there's not a ton that is in that, so it's kind of a nice weight as well if you like that. But again, the biggest price point issue is going to be whether or not you want those stamps. So, and it is what it is. So take that for what you will. I mean, again, I'm surprised it's not funded. I will be shocked if it doesn't fund, since its funding goal is $10,000, but we'll see where it goes. Now let's talk about Milkman. Dice Hate Me, legendary dice and delivery game. You're delivering milk. Now, the interesting thing about this game is that you are going to be rolling a different number of die depending on whether or not you're the active player or the simultaneously rolling non-active player. And what I mean by that is if you're the main player taking their actions, you roll 4 white dice. If you're the non-main player, you're rolling 2 black dice. The black dice are allowed to be re-rolled twice. The white dice aren't allowed to be rolled at all, unless in both cases you want to get extra re-rolls if you want to pay money, $2 or $4 depending on where things are at. Now there's also a spilt milk action which locks your die out, which means you can't re-roll it. You're going to be getting resources, upgrading your dairy farms, delivering to customers, trying to score the most points by the end. That's essentially the game in a nutshell. They're giving you some deluxifications of the resources that are going along with this game, but that's about it for the whole game. There's a couple videos down here that'll give you a little bit of an overview. Depending on how much more they get, they may have a few stretch goals, they may not. Dice Hate Me, 21 games created on crowdfunding, and it's another from their line of products. And so it's definitely a different theme, and I mean, it seems like a relatively solid simultaneous dice rolling I don't want to say pick 'em and deliver, but without lack of better term, I mean, that's kind of what it is. And again, the rule book is out here. You can check it out. It's probably one of the shorter rule books this week. So if you have any interest from the theme, give it a look-see. Next up, Altar, Realm of the Gods, Red Joker Games. You may know that from the Oko Chronicles. This is going to be another draw a card, play a card style of game where you're building shrines and altars on your specific god's side, gathering followers. Followers are giving you asymmetric abilities as well as giving you resources in order to protect yourself as well as defend against the other gods that you're going up against. You draw 2 cards at the beginning of the game, and they're going to have some asymmetric abilities that you're going to use in order to outplay your opponent to build the most shrines, like I mentioned. Depending on how many players there are in the game, it depends on how many that are going to be available to you in the first place. And then you're going to be slowly doing these several different actions that I mentioned, attacking, building, and protecting, and using additional, as many free actions as you can on a turn. And that's because during your turn, you get one of these cards, and then you have the ability to do one of the main actions, followed by as many of the free actions that are going to be available here as possible. And they run you through it, a little bit of the gameplay content here. They run you through the rule book. You know, I really think you better watch a video on this one. There's a couple of these coming up in the next couple games I'm talking about. The flow is not there. The flow is not there on the game page. You need to actually get a sense of what it plays like by watching the videos. And this is the first one in that. Draw one, play one. How do you feel about that mechanically? Bunch of videos. I have no idea. I have no idea with this one. Red Joker Oko, I think, has a relatively good following. But again, this is one that I sort of have no idea about. So I'd say, you know, do your investigations, watch your videos, because the rulebook doesn't give you the best sense. This gameplay page doesn't give you the greatest sense of the flow dynamic in terms of what some of these actions and some of these mechanisms are that you're going to actually be utilizing. So anyway, give it a look-see. Altar, Realm of the Gods. Speaking of things that don't give me a good flow, Cysmic here. Survival, Cysmic Armageddon. Now, essentially what they're saying is this is like an over deluxified version of a combination of, say, Planet Unknown and Foundations of Rome. You'll understand why I'm talking about that in a second. And the key objective of this game is you just need to build a ship in order to escape. And if you're the first one to build the ship and launch successfully, and we'll talk about that in a minute and why that's, again, an interesting aspect here. Launching successfully allows you to win the game. There is no victory point condition. It's just you build, you fly away, you win. But if you try and fly away and you don't have all your troops like gathered onto your ship because you have to gather them all, you have to roll a die, and it's like the conscience die. And if you roll right on the conscience die, you can leave some of your troops behind because the need of the many is outweighed by the need of the few. But then it also makes this vague statement on the game page here that, well, there's going to be ramifications in future games. And then I looked it up in the rulebook and I didn't see anything about ramifications on future games. So I probably overlooked it, but like, that's weird, right? Like, if you win and you still leave troops behind, it's going to cost you on the next game you play. What if you play with a whole bunch of different people? What if the winner is the only one that played on the previous game? Like, that's just, it's weird. It's a weird thing, and maybe I'm overthinking it, but I mean, this is the deluxified game that you're getting. It's just super deluxified, everything across the board. I don't know. They say that the basic concept of this game is you have cards in your hand. You have a set number of cards that are in your faction to start with, like 10 or something, they say. And you're going to be doing one turn per round. You're going to burn a card. You put a card face down. Then you put a card face up, and you take the actions on that card. But then that card also is going to be potentially giving you some bonus actions depending on what it's touching and like where things are on the card at the bottom that you can take additionally. So then you do that, and that's about it. You do that 3 or 4 times, and then that's the whole round, and then you rinse and replete. And they say this is a relatively simple concept. You learn as you go. You learn what some of the iconography and some of the actions mean, and then you don't have any trouble going forward. I mean, that's essentially what they're saying. It's easy to learn as you go. But when you open up the rulebook, it's a 27-page rulebook, and it's a dense rulebook, right? Like, I don't think of, okay, play a card, take actions, needing 27 pages. And yeah, this is a heavy person on a map style area control. It is even self-described in the rule book that this is heavy, literally says extreme take that. And so you're going to be doing that. You're going to be getting hostages from your opponents and then bartering your hostages back to your opponents to get their tech blueprints, but then you're going to have to get the resources and the management of those resources in order to build those blueprints, which are the parts of your ship that you need in the first place. There's a lot going on here. Don't be fooled by this description that says it's very simple. No, there's a lot, and there's a lot of dice rolling as well of the battling side of things. So you need to be aware of that. There's a lot of positive stuff on this page, but I don't get a good flow of it. I don't whatsoever. You're going to have to watch a video on this one more so than any of these others this week, period. They also go down here and they say, we heard you at conventions. We're going to be adding a solo and a co-op. That worries me a little bit. Games that do all three tend to not do all three really well. They tend to do one kind of okay and one good and one maybe not as good. Just, maybe make one really freaking sweet awesome. But, this deluxe edition game is going to get you $250. Speaking of Guards of Atlantis II, right? Like Guards of Atlantis II, $250. This game, $250. Game that's proven on the secondary market. Game that's not proven, take that for what you will. Those things can't be ignored. The retail edition is, still in $100. It's expensive. That's before shipping, folks. The deluxe is going to cost you an additional $60 shipping. So you're looking at probably $3.25 almost by the time this is, if that's even accurate. That's crazy. That's crazy. I mean, the other thing I have to put out there is this is a first-time designer. So what sort of issues are they going to run into? Hopefully none, but that's very ambitious. I'll put it that way. Cysmic, very ambitious. Good luck to them. They're 2/3 of the way funded at this point, over that, so we'll see where it goes. And now, baby, ATW, all-time wrestling. Goodbye and good night. Wrestler references there in case you're not a wrestling fan. But this is a wrestling board game. This is one of the few that is thematically incorporated from a wrestling standpoint on the hobby scene. And they're already over 400% of their funding goal because people just kind of like it. And it's doing something a little bit nice as a 2-player. Now, if you buy a bunch of stuff, you can play up to 4 people. They've got some real life legendary wrestlers that are likenessed in this game as well, that they've got permission to do so. And they give you a little bit of everything that you're going to do. This is a standalone expansion. You can be combined with the previous one. And what you're doing essentially is you're playing cards. You're getting a momentum system. You're getting a dice rolling system where you have a card that's an attack. You play an attack or you regain your stamina. You gain some of your strength back. But if you do that, then the advantage, the initiative goes over to your opponent, and then you become the defender. And when you play an attack card, you have the ability to basically try and hit the attack value, right? It says, the 3 is attack value. You have to roll that on a die. If you don't hit it, well, then you miss. If you hit it, though, you have the ability to combo. You have the ability to run things together. You also have things like finishers, and you have things like reversals. You have one-time abilities, as well as you have just standing abilities that are going to be asymmetric to your wrestler. And you get 4 characters in the base game as a whole. You can get a whole bunch of other packs and the other upgrades as well, depending on how much of this you want, right? But this is still deluxified. You're getting like a playmat and some sleeves here for a decently higher chunk of money. So that's not inexpensive. So take that for what you will, but it's relatively well thought of, it seems like, based on some of the reviews. So it's just whether or not this theme does something for you. And for me, I mean, I'm a wrestling fan. As weird as that sounds. I don't really see myself doing it on the tabletop with a game, though. So take that for what you will. Runs you through what I exactly just said here, dealing damage. You can do the print and play. Again, there's enough information out there that you can check out and see whether or not this is for you, but those are the basic gist. Do you like head-to-head asymmetry? Do you like heavy dice rolling? Do you like combo card play? Do you like having a momentum initiative system where if you do successive things in a row, it's going to behoove you because then your attack to hit actually lessens. You have finisher cards that are going to have to be rolled out of, meaning they have to roll a certain number of dice, a certain number, in order to actually not get pinned to lose the game. So there's a lot of luck there involved at all levels. Does that suit you? All-time wrestling. The Extreme Edition now. There you go. That's it. Round up. Baby. That's all I got. So, yeah. Round up this week. Relatively shorter and sweeter. Next week is going to be crazy, though. Next week, we got a couple big projects that are launching right at the beginning of May. May is forking insane. Holy IPs, Batman. Holy IPs. That's all I can say. There is a week in the 3rd week of May that potentially has $4 million games raised going at the same time. Forking insane. So we're going to see where it goes, right? I love talking about it on a weekly basis. Let me know what else you want to see. In case you can't see, actually, I just have right below me here on the table, Weirdwood Manor. So I'm going to be hopefully filming that review shortly after I finish this up, and hopefully have that out at the beginning of next week in case you're wondering about this weird, spinning, time-related, pandemic-esque cooperative game. Well, I'm going to have some thoughts out, and we'll go from there. So, other than that, yeah, it was a nasty leg day. I did hamstrings and lower back, and then
We went to the zoo with the 2-year-old. The zoo is like built into a hill, right? So it's just a ton of walking uphill, a ton. There were people walking behind us as we were exiting the zoo, and they were like, I just can't believe that we had to walk so much. There's so much wasted space in here. Why did they have to make it so hilly? It's built into a freaking hill. What did you expect? Oh, let's just put all the animals next to each other. Nothing would go bad with that. My wife and I were just looking at each other like, right. Okay, man. So, I don't know. To each their own, right? To each their own. It was busy though, too. It was busy. It went from like 44 to 58 in the hour we were out there. That, my friends, is Michigan weather. Stay classy. See you around. Peace out! Competitive